Hi, my name is David Wiley, and I work with the Texas Deafblind Project. We have our offices at Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Austin. And I tend to focus with our group on students who are nearing graduation, and on working together with agencies and organizations outside of public education who provide services in community settings. And today we're going to be talking about after graduation, and we're going to be talking about how we can help support students who are deafblind to find ways to actively participate in community life. And we're going to focus in on the areas of being productive through employment in many different ways. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll see if we can get this going. Okay, so we're going to talk about creating meaningful, productive work opportunities. But before I do this, we were broken into two separate days here, and I'm not sure everybody who's here today was here earlier in the week. And so I'm going to do a quick little review of some of the things that we said, just to sort of set the scene for what we're going to talk about. And one of the things we mentioned yesterday is that one of the things I think is universal for people is what they're looking for is a high quality of life. And to feel like their life is something that makes them happy, where they can feel joy in their life, when they can feel like what they do is important, and they feel connected with other people and their communities. And so I think that's true for all of us, but the specifics of that is different for every single individual. And I may have said it last time or not, but I could give examples. Some people would say my favorite thing to do, what makes life good for me, is if I'm able to travel and go many new places and explore. There are others of you who say, no, what for me makes a high quality of life is being in my home and around the people and the things that I know, and travel just makes me nervous, and I don't particularly enjoy it. Those are both valid responses to that. They're just different, and everybody has different responses to everything. Some of you may love to be in the outside, and you spend your time like wanting to go places like hikes and to the beach, etc. And others of you think, oh, I don't want to get outside in the heat, and whatever. And you have a different opinion. Well, all the students have different opinions too on elements of their life, and so the question of what makes a high quality of life is different for each and every student, and that applies to the things that they do to be productive and work. And so we need to discover what makes each of the students tick and what kinds of solutions would be best for them. These details may not be clear for some of the students that we work with. They may not know about themselves yet. They may not have had enough time to explore and really begin to understand themselves. Or perhaps they don't have the communication skills to let us know the kinds of things that they would like to have in their life. And so we need to work to try to give opportunities for these young people to explore and show us the things that they prefer, the things that really make them happy. And so I think one of the things we're going to do on our discussion today is talk about those individuals who we're going to talk about across the spectrum of people, across the board. But I'm going to spend most of my time talking about people whose path is non-traditional, and that the typical thing that we have in our society of, oh gosh, you go to college and you go on and start your career, etc., may seem like it's not a good fit, or it's not a personal goal of theirs, or they need to look for ways to make it work for them that are not necessarily typical. I mentioned last time also that we do have in IDEA some what they call indicators of things that they would like states to report on to assess the quality of the services that they're providing. The one for post-school outcomes called Indicator 14, and in that, schools should report the percentage of youth who are no longer in secondary school and had IEPs in effect when they left school that were enrolled in higher education or in some other post-secondary education or training program or competitive employment or some other employment within 1 year after leaving high school. So there's a real focus on from the regulations on employment, and it is the reason there is because it is very important. But I also mentioned last time that there's more to life than just work. There's all elements that we have in our life of the things we do for fun, our social events, our family life, and all of these things are important to our quality of life. And so we need to we're going to focus in today on work, but remember that there are other elements of helping a person feel like they're having a rich and full life where they can feel a sense of purpose and satisfaction and joy in the things that they do. And we have to think about all those things. So we also need to figure out if we could say, how would the student describe a successful life? And sort of set up their own viewpoint of what would be success. And we do that by helping them, I think, explore themselves and explore the world so that they get some ideas of what they want to accomplish in life. And so that leads us to that question: is the student ready to make that determination? Do they have enough life experiences or enough information to be able to make good judgments about the things that they want to do? And that's one of the things that hopefully we're doing as we are working together with them, is helping students begin to understand those things. And some of that has to do with the information that they get and the concepts that they have. And we know that there's barriers to easily gathering information for students who are deafblind. And for some of those students, there's also barriers to language barriers to them being able to explain things to us. So that goes both ways. And so what we need to do is find ways to really help those individuals, those students, find things that work for them and help plan and organize that for them. So we come down to this, that success is based on the opportunity for people to follow their interests, their preferences, their abilities, and their community connections, the people that they know and the people that they care about. And all of these things affect, I think, a person's judgment about whether or not they're being successful. If they're getting to do things they're interested in, that they like, that they feel like they're good at, and that they get to spend time with people that they care about and that they feel comfortable with. And so this would apply in all areas of life: your social life, your recreation, your home life, around your neighborhood, and also your workplace or the place where you spend time doing productive things.
So, David, this is Marilyn speaking. Just to let you know that Faith from Illinois seems to hyper-focus on competitive employment, and not all students can achieve that. At least that's what happens here in Illinois, especially with VR services for the blind. And before you respond, let's just go ahead and do an interpreter switch real quick, okay?
Okay.
All right, you're good to go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think that we have to recognize that amongst our students, there are different courses that make sense for them and make sense to them. And so we can't have a singular focus on there is the correct solution, there is the individual solution. And that's true, I think that's true for everybody. But for our students, definitely there is a wide range of what we see as things that work for them and things that work out for them, and and so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of what do we do when a student doesn't really fit the mold, and what can we help them with, what can we guide them toward, and what can we help support. And there's a lot of individual solutions to that, and that's going to be the focus of what we're going to do today. So I appreciate your comment. I wanted to go into why it is, how it is that we find out what these interests and skills are, etc. And a lot of the traditional vocational programs ways to look at that is doing things like interest inventories, aptitude tests, and interviews. And I wonder sometimes whether or not things that are just asking people questions actually get to the bottom of what it is that they really want. Like, I could ask you a question and say, I'm from Texas, and I know most of you aren't, so I'm thinking maybe this would be an interesting question to ask. If you had to, for your job or for whatever reason, need to relocate to Texas, which of these Texas cities would you prefer to move to? There's Beaumont, Midland, and Waco. So I'll sort of throw that out there. Which one of those would you like to move to? Now, I don't know if any of you are going to and,
so this is Marilyn speaking. So far, you got nobody making a comment yet.
Yeah, well, I think there's a reason for that, is because you're going like, what the heck? What kind of question is that? Because,
well, you have none of the above from Julie.
Oh, okay.
But you do have Waco, and then other Julie says, "Isn't Austin an option?" Question mark, exclamations.
No, I didn't put Austin in there because I wanted to sort of illustrate the point that perhaps a lot of the questions that we ask students when we do these kinds of assessments are things that they don't know about. Now, I could tell you more about these cities. Beaumont, that's down on the Gulf Coast in southeast Texas. It's a town that's near the Gulf of Mexico, but it is not really that close to recreational areas. On the it's sort of surrounded by an industrial area. There's a lot of oil refineries there and whatnot. You know, within an hour you can get to the beach, but that's Beaumont. Midland, that's out there in West Texas. It's out where the plains are and sparser vegetation. And it is a town that really thrives on the oil economy. And all these towns are about the same size. And it does, you know, they're mid-sized cities or small cities in the, you know, 100 to 200,000 person range. Waco, that's in Central Texas. That's in Central Texas. And
but an important fact, though, David, just to let you know now, Donna said, and a lot of people may change their mind because, you know, Donna even hit the nail here, saying Waco, so she can visit Magnolia, and I'd have to agree with her on that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've forgotten that Waco's famous now for something other than the compound, and it's Central Texas. It's sort of a halfway between Dallas and Austin, so they aren't particularly close, but they're accessible. The Interstate Highway 35 runs right through those three towns, and I don't know. Does that bit of information help you make a decision? I think it probably doesn't. And the reason I picked those towns is I wanted to pick something where you might not have enough information to decide. And I could tell you or show you pictures. I sometimes when I do this, and today I'm not because of the interest of time, but you know, I could give you their Wikipedia page and show you some photos from around town, and you could do that on your own, but you still might not be able to make a decision just based on getting that information. And yet, what if someone said, I want you to make a choice here, and we're going to base what we do in helping you and supporting you based on the information, based on what you pick. I think that's one of the problems with this, is because I think a lot of times students don't really understand what it is that we're asking them, because they don't have enough information. And some of that is just the fact that they may not have had opportunities, but some of it may be due to the fact that if you're deaf-blind, there are sensory barriers to easily gathering information at a distance. So the information that people might have just amongst, the general public, typical people, they might not know because they would have difficulty getting that information, or especially gathering that information incidentally, like hearing news reports, or knowing that on TV there is the fixer-upper, whichever it is, anyway, the Magnolia people. And so some people get that information, but other people who have difficulty getting information may not know it. And so as a result, I think a lot of times the information that we get from these kinds of assessments don't yield fruitful results, because the information is based on asking people questions that they don't know much about. I know in transition planning, we might ask questions like, would you prefer to live in a house or an apartment? That's a fairly simple one, but I do know students who don't really understand what that means. Like the house that they know, the place that they know about is where they live. And I was with a student once when this question was posed to them, and it took a really long time to explain what an apartment was. There's a bunch of little houses, and they're stuck together, and there may be a pool out there, blah blah. And it was like, what? And so I think that there are questions that may sound very easily or very, make sense to ask someone, but when you think about the person's concept development and the information that they have and their ability to get information, maybe it's hard. And so if we ask a even broader thing like the central city of the suburbs, that might also, how much information do you need to know to be able to answer that question? And you might think to yourself, well, of course everybody understands that, but really not if you don't easily gather information, or if you hadn't had opportunities to explore. And so that makes it hard. And then I think sometimes I think the questions that we might ask might sound to them something like, would you rather live in Bucharest or Zagreb? And that's the capital of Romania and the capital of Croatia. And I could ask you which you would rather live in, Bucharest or Zagreb, and I could try to explain some things about those towns to you. But really, to actually make an assessment and to say this was which I prefer, you would have to go there. And that's what I think we need to remember about our students. If we're going to try to get information from them and about them, we've got to give them a chance to go there, because that's the only way they could really know. And so that means, I think, that we need to provide opportunities for people to try things and do things so that they can get firsthand knowledge about them, if we're really going to use that information to help plan for them the kind of life that they would like to have. I put this up here about a connection. And when we think about this idea of you may not be getting a lot of great information, a lot of times a comment that I hear, I don't want to say complaint, but a comment that I hear people say is that the student is being unrealistic in their goals. And I put there that I wonder if it's actually a question of being unrealistic. That sort of seems like a character flaw. Somebody's a dreamer, they just don't understand. They're unrealistic. And I wonder if the issue isn't that they're uninformed, and that they don't really have enough information about things to be able to make sound judgments. I was talking to this young woman, nearing graduation, about what she wanted to do as a career. And she told me that she wanted to be a doctor. And I asked her why she wanted to be a doctor. And she said, because my mom and I, our favorite television show that we sit and watch together is Grey's Anatomy. And I really like Grey's Anatomy. And so I want to be a doctor like those people on TV. And so someone might say with her academic skill level that medical school probably is not going to be a good fit for her, a good option for her. And so people might say, oh, well, that's just, she's being unrealistic. I'm kind of thinking she's just saying the thing that she knows about, the thing that she sees every week on television. And so I think one of the ways that we typically approach that when someone says something like that is to say, well, okay, doctor might not be a good fit, but well, let's look at something that's going on in a medical field. So maybe if they worked at the hospital in some capacity that might involve the materials or the equipment and storing or distributing it, or working in some other fashion in a hospital setting, that might be something that they would like. I think that might be true, and that's a good way to think of it. But I think it might not be true, and I say that because when I asked this young woman, what kind of help do you think you might need in order to be a doctor? And her answer to that question was, I guess I would need someone to tell me what to say to the patients. And it struck me as she said that her view of a doctor, based on her viewing of the television, is that a doctor comes in and makes a report to someone. And that's what she likes about it. She viewed the doctor's role was not necessarily to diagnose anything. It was to be a reporter, to go in and tell somebody, well, I'm sorry to say, your rib is broken, or whatever the report is. And so that's what she wants to do, is talk to people and report things. In so which case, I think, working down in the inventory part of the hospital storage area would not be something that would be of interest to her. But customer service is. What she wants to do is to be able to tell people things, be able to interact with the public. And so I'm thinking there are many kinds of places besides hospitals where people do that, which I think she would probably, if we explored it, be the kinds of things that she would like to do, whether it's a library or a retail establishment or something else where she's giving people information. And so, or even a farmer's market. There's lots of different places that might work. And so we need to think about what would make it workable for her by following what her interest is, which I think in this case is reporting things to people. I also, in talking about being uninformed, there was a different student nearing graduation. I remember talking to her and sitting down and having a little conference, and I asked her what she wanted to do as a career, and she said either be a nurse or a teacher. And the reason that struck me is that is a sort of a not having a breadth of knowledge issue. Was she was, as we were sitting there, she was sitting between her mother and her beloved teacher, and her mother's a nurse. And so when she said, I would like to be a nurse or a teacher, I would say, oh yes, the occupations that are represented by people that are within 3 feet of you. And so I think that what she needs is more information and an opportunity to explore things, because she was just saying what she knew about and what she was being reminded of in that particular moment. And so I think that that's one of the things that could really help a person, is to have an opportunity to explore things. And so these are the tools of discovery. I put the source there of this as the people from Mark Gold and Associates, who we mentioned yesterday. I mentioned, and someone else put it in the chat. And so shout out to them, because we're going to talk a lot about customized employment, and that's where I get most of my information on that. And so the tools of discovery that they talk about is reviewing existing information and then having conversation with the student and the people that know the student best who can tell stories about them, and then participation in and observation of a range of activities, old and new, to give people a chance to try things and see how they react to it, see how they respond to it, and what they can report afterwards about it if they have the language to do that. But if they don't, to see how they react to them and whether or not those things make them feel comfortable and safe and happy. So we can discover interests and skills and connections through experiential hands-on learning, job trials, life experiences, and person-centered planning circles where we can gather together the people that know the student best and ask them questions that just let them tell stories about the things that they've observed about them and the places they've gone together and the things that they've done together to help us get a full picture of what's going on with the student. And so we can view them more as a whole person. The final thing I'll do is I talked about yesterday, I talked a lot about, the final thing I'll do for my review is we talked about yesterday organizing contexts and thinking about how different interests can fit into a person's life. So I have this series of questions that I like to ask if we know somebody's interested in something. If they say, I'm interested in gardening, we could ask this series of questions. How could that be a job? Or how could it be a business? Or how could you use it to help as a community service? How could it bring you together with neighbors and other people in your community as a social activity? Could you do it for fun? Could you use it to manage your home? Could it help you with your self-care? And then to say, what areas can your gardening interest fit into? And you might say, well, it actually could be a job. Or it could be a business that you could start. Or it could be something you could do to do as a community service around your town. It could be a social activity. You could do it for fun. Or you could manage your home with it. All of those are good reasons to do gardening. And so what we need to do is figure out which one of those contexts really work for gardening, and maybe it's more than one. But today, from this point forward, we're going to focus in on the work side of things. And we're going to talk about different kinds of work settings. And so I'm going to talk about competitive employment. I'm going to talk about customized employment. I'm going to talk about self-employment. And I'm going to talk about community service. So those four things I think are all ways, if we go back to the garden example, those are all ways you could get to do gardening. But they're really all ways that you could get to do whatever those kinds of things are that are your interests or your skills or the things that make you happy. First, I'm going to talk about competitive or supported employment. I put those in the same category. In this short clip we're going to watch, this individual is getting some support from a job coach. Supported employment would provide a longer-term support and coaching and teaching involved in helping a person settle into their job. But ultimately, it's competitive employment in the sense that it usually focuses around a person being able to get a job that is in the marketplace, in the job market, that is something that people can apply for. And so in this particular case, whoops, I got to play the video. In this particular case, it's I'm going to show a student. This young man is named Anthony. He works. He's doing a job at a supermarket, and so you'll see. And it's the kind of job that typically people from the general public get. I'll describe a little bit about what's happening here. Stacking groceries at the checkout stand. After talking to you with job coach, some about for bagging.
Yeah. It's $20 or $60.25. Would you like to round up for urban responsible?
Sure.
Yeah.
He was loading up a paper bag from the store, and now he's loading up a bag that someone brought with them. He's equally successful that way. Now Anthony is collecting the baskets and the checkout station away. Anthony still has some good central vision, which helps him travel, but he and here he's taking on another role, which is cleaning up in the deli section of the store. It's the Whole Food Market. No, it's Wheatsville Co-op. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop this right now. Oops, okay. And talk about that for a moment. So what we got to see is Anthony doing the kind of job, and the reason I put this down under competitive is it's the kind of job that there may be a want ad for in the paper, and many people could come and apply for it, and it has a set number of job duties and responsibilities that you're expected to have if you have this to do, if you have this job, and he doesn't need too much in the way of modifications. He is a ASL user, and so there needs to be a way to work through communicating with his coworkers and supervisors, and that's the main adaptation that he would need in order to do that. Probably there's some things about the areas where he works, the lighting. The store has a pretty universally good lighting, which probably works for him. So that's not a thing. So that's what a competitive, being able to do a competitive job means, is to be able to make an application, apply, interview, and do the responsibilities of the job as they are listed by the management. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to spend most of my time in talking instead about another kind of employment, because I think these are the ones that I think when the title that we have today is Thinking Outside the Box in terms of employment. And this is where we really get into working outside the box and helping students or helping young adults or graduates who aren't necessarily successful in meeting the responsibilities of jobs as they're listed in the want ads and the job duties as the management sets forth in them, and you have to do something a little different to make it work. So customized employment is different than competitive employment, which in this context refers to traditional search for existing job openings and job descriptions. Competitive employment says, let's do something a different way. I mean, customized employment says, let's do something a different way. And so this would involve negotiating the terms of the job. So rather than just saying, here's an opening and here's what the responsibilities are, you say, might this be a good place for me to work? And can I talk to the management and say, how is it possible that I could work here and do something valuable for your organization that doesn't currently exist as a job opening? It's what we have for years referred to as job carving, or taking an establishment and saying, can we carve out responsibilities that are well suited for this individual? So this would include negotiating the job duties and expectations. It may require negotiating the schedule so that the schedule fits what the individual may be able to do, either due to their stamina or some other element of things that might impact their ability to work well. Like, for instance, in a case like Anthony, who we were just watching, and his vision is such that he has problems seeing at night. So I would need to work the day shift, because that's when I would be able to do all the responsibilities I have, or be able to travel effectively to get there and back, and so not the night shift. So there's different things that might affect the schedule, and you would need to negotiate that. You need to talk about the pay and benefit, and see and come out to an equitable and workable solution in the pay scale based on the responsibilities that you get, which is not. A person should get a fair wage for sure, and what we're talking about is wages that exceed the minimum and are commiserate with their coworkers. But the fact that you may be having a different job responsibility list than everybody else, you got to figure out, like, well, what's the pay for that? And then you might need to change the workstation and make sure that the place that the person is working has the accommodations they need to be successful, and the equipment that they need. And finally, whether or not they need accommodations and support. And I'm going to show you a group of people who are getting continuing support on the job support. And when you go through VR to get a position, they support you in getting that done, and getting the equipment that you need, and getting the training that you need to start the job. But it is time limited, in that there's a point in time when there's an expectation that the natural supports on the workplace will take over, and the VR services can fade out until they're needed again. There's some people that we know need really support every day in order to do their job effectively, or on a regular basis, ongoing. And in that case, you need to find a way to get them the support that they need. And that may be through natural supports of coworkers and other people in the workplace, or it may be support that's provided through some sort of an agency. And we'll talk about that, and we'll see that in the examples I'm going to show. And most of the people that I'm showing that are providing support to a person on the job are being hired through some sort of program, like a Medicaid waiver program, where it's support that they can get in home and community settings through various agencies. I know I've got a multi-state audience, so it's difficult for me to say exactly what that's called where you are, because these programs are developed and created and named state by state. And so, but the thing that I'm talking about are Medicaid-funded long-term care, home and community services. So customized employment involves identifying a job that's good to fit, and this is what we've just been talking about, based on interests, preferences, abilities, experience, and life circumstances. It can be achieved through approaching an employer and negotiating, or starting a business, and usually involves some or all of the following. So there's two ways to do it. It's to work for an employer, or if you can't find an employer that works for it, to do self-employment, and we're going to talk about that one. And then it usually involves having a personal representative to assist you in exploring and problem solving with the employer. So that could be someone from a school or an agency, or it could be someone from a family or a friend, but someone who can help look at the workplace and see if it is a good fit for you, and to also help you work together with your employer to find the kinds of work responsibilities that would be successful for you.
And David, let's go and do an interpreter switch real quick, okay?
Okay.
Okay, you're good. Gracias.
So it's also developing necessary accommodations, figuring out job coaching or training, and then building a system for ongoing support, which is necessary for students who have a need for support that can't be necessarily fated. So it starts with discovery of the interests and preferences, etc., and then also conditions for success, those things that would be successful in looking at the workplace. This include what suits their personality, what kind of physical and social environment works for them, the pace of the activity, how quickly they have to work, their health and their stamina, communication, the availability of the support, etc. I'm going to move on and show you some examples of this. The first one I'm going to show you is someone who has, I think, a sort of a classic customized job. This is a guy named Chris. That's him right there, getting ready to clock in. He works at a small, I guess you could say a small factory. It's a place that makes prosthetic limbs and other adaptive equipment for, it's called Orthotics and Prosthetics is the name of it, Central Texas of that. And so I'm going to show you what Chris does there because it's a totally carved job. And what Chris does is things that need to be done at the workplace that people who are specialized workers in various other ways have to take time out of their regular job to do. And Chris collected those things, and he does them so that other people can remain on their job. And the employer felt like this was very valuable to them. Chris was on dialysis for a long time. He's had a kidney transplant. He doesn't have great stamina. So a schedule for him was of 10 hours a week seemed like a good one. And so that's what he has. And other than that, he does his job. He does have an employment support person who goes with him to work every time he goes. And so I'm just going to play this and show it to you and let you see it. I'm going to have to search around in this video for it, and so I am sorry about that.
Hey, David, no problem at all. Just do us a favor and just turn the volume off.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay, there we go. It's captioned too, so that's good. No problem. We just wanted to be sure there was no overlay because it was kind of hard to hear you last time. Appreciate it.
Oh, okay. Started late. Oh. 15:44.
Artificial limbs and prostheses for people, and arm braces, leg braces, and Chris does a different variety of odd jobs that they found a need for. They have a list typed up on their wall for Mr. Chris's daily duties, and like Monday it's like clean the plaster or pulling room and sweep the floors, dust the counters, and each day there's something different, and there's a checklist so he can check it off after he does it, and that helps him visually see and read what he needs to do next. And Chris works just 10 hours a week. The job was sort of created for Chris. They wanted to find something that he could do that would enhance their company and to give him some hours of work, but, you know, not too much. He takes out the trash and cleans the counters and stocks the refrigerator with their drinks. He vacuums. He paper shreds the papers. We do the Sam's and Walmart run for the company. We saw they had a need for that and asked if we could do that, and they were really happy that we took over and volunteered to do that. I mean, it's part of his job now. And he's made a lot of friends. He's been invited to weddings and parties, and we celebrate birthdays there in the break room with everybody. Usually at least once a month we do that. And I think the people there have learned something from Chris.
He's does his job, we do our job, and we just get along fine. He's just one of the gang, one of the family. Everyone has their own little quirks, whether you have disabilities or not. So he's just like any other worker to work with.
Mexican food is Chris. We've actually, we went to Mexican food places. We went to Wings and More, where it's wings and stuff. Olive Garden with on Christopher's. He goes to Christmas and stuff, like we had our Christmas party, just had it. And Miss Cheryl and Chris, they fight for the lottery tickets. Yeah, and they get to exchange.
And so he doesn't create a problem in the workplace.
No. He actually, I think, sometimes brightens it up for us.
We were sitting at lunch having lasagna, Miss Falso brought up the other day, and Chris had eaten his lunch, and everyone had gotten up, and we were all fat and happy after lunch, and Chris stood up, stretched. Aaron was sitting right by him, and he walked over to Aaron and went, kind of ruffle up his hair. And he gets this big grin on his face, like, ha ha, gotcha.
He's part of the gang. Right now we're cooking lunch, and typically he'll sit down and eat lunch with us, whether it's good or not. Fits right in.
When Chris was in high school, the School for the Blind, Texas School for the Blind, and our high school together did the personal futures planning for Chris. We had a circle of people come to our home, like his brother, his grandparents, maybe an aunt, his teachers, the special ed administrator, I believe she may have come too, and the School for the Blind, and the Commission for the Blind, they came, and we talked about Chris's future dreams or plans. If we could dream big, what would we dream? And we talked about, having a home and being able to have friends and socialization and working. And I mean, it seems to me most of those dreams have all come true because Chris has been a busy young man since high school.
Okay. So in that particular case of a customized employment, Chris had found someone who he met, who ran a business, who was interested in working with him. And so they went to the workplace and they started saying, what are some things that Chris could do if he worked about 10 hours a week? And so there were certain things that the people who were in the fabrication part of the job, stuff that, scraps and stuff that they had to stop and clean up afterwards. And so he came in and started doing that for them. He also was in the business office. All of the medical records that come in order to guide them in creating the materials that they were making, the devices that they were making and the artificial limbs, etc. All those records needed to be confidentially shredded, and so he took that on. He also did deliveries, and one of the jobs was just like, we keep a cold fridge and we keep a fridge in so people can go get cold drinks whenever they want, the employees, and so he keeps that stocked up, and he just does sort of odd jobs around the place that no one had really been assigned before, but someone needed to do. And it really worked out, and it's been somewhere where he's worked a really long time and has very successful employment with. and also a successful social life because of it, because he does have a good relationship with all of his coworkers and gets him invited to lots of events and things like that. So, curious, any thoughts or on Chris and his work?
So David, this is Donna here. I'm just going to read what Julie had put in here. She said, what a terrific example. The strong connection with his coworkers was especially good to see. I think the social aspect of work is often overlooked for workers with support needs.
Can I show you how high I can jump?
Yeah, I really appreciate that comment, because it's I think it's what makes it work for him is that he's found a circle of people that he likes to be around, and so that gives him a really desire to go and do that job. I'm gonna show another one now, and this is a guy named Brett. His is somewhere between employment and self-employment, in that he has a contract to operate a concession at the county courthouse. And so it's customized in the sense of he's the boss. And so he makes his own decisions on what he sells and what his how he has it set up so that it works the way he wants it to work. And I think the only thing that the responsibility he had from the contract was he did get some hours that he needed to have it open. And other than that, he's in charge. So I'll show you Brett working at the courthouse.
Hey, David, this is Marilyn speaking. Real quick, just to let you know that somebody is asking in the chat box, how did that site get selected? Did he know someone who worked there? How did that work out? It's important to have support, but it is too often overlooked. So that too, Amy said correct. But just, I think that's a question a lot of people are asking. Somebody actually texted me too, asking, wow, how do we find places like that?
It really was a personal connection. It wasn't somebody he knew for a long time, like a long-term family friend, but there was some event of some kind, and I've heard this story, but I don't remember all the details. But there was a chance encounter that Chris and his family had with the guy who owns that factory, and they were just talking, and they were sort of intrigued by the work that they did there, and the fact that they work peripherally with people with disabilities. And so the family was aware from Chris's old friends of some of the people that they might have worked with, and the owner of the place took an interest in Chris and said, I think we could find a place for him. And so I think the key is to be open to opportunities and to know what you're looking for, and then to sort of get out there and have a chance to make connections. And then when an opportunity looks good, you can jump on it. I think one of the keys to that also is for looking for communications from within the circle of people that you already know. And that's why we, in person-centered planning, like to invite friends and neighbors and people from the church and coworkers of family members and aunts and uncles and everybody into those kinds of planning environments, because they all have connections. And so if you're saying like, we're looking for this kind of place, there's usually somebody who says like, I know somebody who does that, and I can make an introduction. I think it's harder to just do it cold. It's not impossible to do it cold, but I think looking at pre-existing conditions, pre-existing connections is one of the good ways to find opportunities.
Right. And so before we go ahead and jump to the next video, let's go ahead and do an interpreter switch. Thanks, Bob.
I'm Mom, Joanne. We actually heard about it on the radio. The fellow that had retired, the county judge made an announcement that he was looking for someone visually impaired or hearing impaired to try to take over the position because he felt like it was a tradition that they had, and they felt they wanted to continue it. And they really didn't want any change. They wanted someone here that would be useful and helpful and communicate. And when we heard about it, we talked to the judge one day, and he said, well, I'm going to put him on a list, and we're going to have him come to the board meeting and discuss it. So that's what we did. We brought Brad, and we sat down, and they talked about how, between themselves in the meeting, about how they would like to have another person that has some kind of disability working here. And Brett told him that he thought he would like it. Put him on a contract. So he's got hours. He has to be here from 8 to 4, Monday through Thursday, and then he has a little shorter day on Friday.
We didn't know how long it would burn out on him, but it seems like he just likes it more every day. So he's been here over a year now, so he's got everything down pat pretty well. Keeps him busy for sure.
And Brett really enjoys routines and doing things that he really is successful at, and he's able to follow routines here, and pretty much has really progressed daily. He looks forward to coming and enjoys the people, and he's made a lot of friends here.
Oh, what is this place?
This is my office. We usually, we get everything set up, put everything on the counter, hot chocolate, and on the top of it all, the tip cups, and hot water on that thing, and very much it, and peppermint.
Yep.
Peppermint.
Yeah. Do you know a lot of the customers? Do you have a lot of regular customers?
Every single day. Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Some people come every day?
Mm-hmm. Every day. They come every day.
Hey, Brad, I need a water.
Okay.
And a large cup of coffee.
Okay. Here we go.
Morning.
Morning.
Do you want me to send some money with Harry in a minute? I only have 20.
Yeah, that's fine. You want it. Wherever you want it. Wherever you want. Muffin and paper. Okay. It'll be $2.50. I'm giving you 3. Okay. Here. That'll be all for you? Yes. I'll be with you.
Did I like 50%?
Okay.
Calculator.
I know you just go there. I'll be with you.
Having a job coach to reinforce things in that routine and improve on each little task so that he got better at it. And it really took about 6 months to get him to where he is now, and he still makes improvements daily. There are things that he has difficulties with, and we still require a job coach part of the day. Right now, we're using the class resources class program. They have the availability of a job coach, and so we started out with DARS. They did some job coaching in the beginning. Right now, he's getting 4 hours a day, so right at 20 hours a week. He works Monday through Friday.
I'm Amanda Dillon, and I'm working with Brett Simpson. I'm considered his job coach. I come in and out several times a day, checking on his needs to make sure that he is assisted properly with his inventory and cash exchange with people, his customers. I come 5 days a week. I help him open and I help him close. make sure everything's cleaned up and if there's nothing in his path during his lunch break for danger or anything spilled. So. He is very outgoing. He is very friendly. And so somebody, if I'm here, I have to sometimes tell them, you know, they're buying a bag of chips. Because he doesn't recognize when they just put it on the counter.
Yeah, and that's why he has this sign out.
And people do not see that all the time for some apparent reason.
Yeah.
And if he is doing something else, there is the buzzer for them to buzz to let him know that they are here. And they don't always do that, but.
Make money, put the money in the box. Make coffee in the morning, clean the clothes, clean the counters, all that stuff.
Okay.
And I mean, before it gets dirty, we have to clean it.
So Brett, explain to me what you're doing right now.
I'm checking my counter. My counter, see how many buttons that I have. And that way I know that when you're out anything, I have to bring some more.
He usually goes to the counter and searches and finds out what he's low on. And he's got a symbol inventory book that he'll go through and pick out the symbols of the items that he's running low on. And he's got a grocery book, and he pulls the symbols out of the inventory book and puts them in his grocery book. And then he brings that with him to the grocery store when he goes shopping.
Excuse me. Where's that coat? And where's the coat? That one thing.
Alright. Okay. What is it?
Got chips.
Got plenty of those.
Yeah, plenty of it.
Okay.
Okay. Dingle. That one.
That's not a finger, that's
I think that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
That one, two, 3, 4, 5. We have 5.
5 in your case. So do you want to put the water on your list too?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, got it?
Right.
You need zingers. All right.
Okay, what else?
That's it. That's all on your list. I'm gonna give you the paper to put.
Yeah, they take it shopping.
They take it shopping so you know what to buy?
I got 2 things of crackers.
Okay.
$1. I'm gonna give you the piece that came off so you can stick that in your bag and you can fix it. You got it in there? Okay, ready? Go. It's got both pieces to it.
I see a book that says Brett's Daily Calendar. What's in there?
Open. Water, open. Coffee.
Make the coffee.
Make coffee.
Oh, so these are,
Make the money. The budget. Different. All that stuff.
Is it your schedule?
Yeah, that's my schedule.
Truthfully, it's not for the money. They even said, in the beginning, it's not much, but the man that was here before retired, and it seemed like it was something that Brett would be happy doing. He likes to be around people. He likes to talk to people, even though he has limitations on what he can discuss. People still enjoy him, and giving him something to look forward to and feeling like he's involved with other people. I think that's the biggest benefit.
Why do you like working here?
Trying to make money. Trying to make money for people to buy stuff.
Besides the money, why do you like coming here?
Trying to make money for people. 13, 14, 15, 16.
And how many fives?
17, 18, 19, and 20.
Calculator.
3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2. Current entry 2, 1, 2, 1, 0. Current entry is 20.00 plus 5.00 plus 3.0. Enter. The total is 28.00.
The sales tax is included in the price, so we figure out what the actual sales tax is from what the money that he brings home. And then I have to keep up with the receipts once he buys his supplies, and I put that in the notebook. And he's just aware he doesn't have the capability of adding or subtracting those numbers to be correct all the time. So I have to go and make sure we got the right amounts and put it on a tax form every quarter.
So you act as his accountant?
True.
Yeah.
Bookkeeper, accountant. I have enough background where I could fill out the form. They're really simple, and we send that in quarterly.
Okay. And so, and does he pay you as his accountant?
No, he gets away with a real freebie there.
Okay.
Usually Sunday sandwich.
Yeah.
I usually bring my lunch. Usually I go to my office and eat in my front desk. I do.
You make your own lunch? You make it in the morning or you make it the night before?
I usually make it at night.
Yeah.
When we first came to work here, helping Brett, one of the lawyers locally here has just a real playful type attitude with everybody in the courthouse. And he started talking to Brett, and he said he would be playing music at a local coffee shop. So if I can't go, I have to find somebody to take him, because he is determined that he wants to be there.
There's something tall and strong, and you a hurricane to light and sun. Only that first trip without a dream.
I'm going to stop this just in the interest of time. So here's the deal with that. And let me describe some of the things that were going on. Brett applied with the county commissioner's court to work at the courthouse based on an advertisement that a family member had heard on the radio. And he got the job. And so he is working as a contractor, and as I said before, self-employment is the best kind of customized employment because you don't have to negotiate with anybody. You're the boss. And so, for instance, he can set his own prices. Everything is priced like $1, $2, or 50 cents. And that way, even though math is not a strong suit for him, he can do those computations in his head. You have 3 bags of chips, that's $3. You know? And so those are the that way he's able to be pretty successful. He doesn't use his vision at all. He does use his hearing and speech But you may have seen his amplification, and he also has FM system, an FM mic on the counter, which enables him to hear the customers better. And he has a vibrating belt hooked to a customer service button on the counter that enables him to know if he's gone into the back, whether someone's at the register, at the counter. And other than that, he can do most of the job responsibilities himself. This was a great fit for Brett because Brett is very personable, as you probably witnessed, and he's extremely good at making kind of small talk, but he gets kind of lost if in long discussions about complex topics. And so this particular job is great for him because he doesn't have to have those kind of conversations. People come up, they have a quick chat about what's going on, and they exchange pleasantries, and they do their business, and then they're gone. And so that's just perfect situation for him because he's very social, but can get stressed out and frustrated in a social situation where, like I say, that the conversation becomes on topics that he has a hard time understanding. And so that works out real well for Brett, and he's been doing it for a number of years, and he has some health concerns that get in the way a little bit, but mostly it's been a success.
So Faith was asking, were Brett's parents present just for the recording, or are they there to assist every day? And another piece that was asked in here, which is something that a lot of people are asking, is who provided the training for the job, and did the individual who retired help out in any way?
Okay, those are good questions. The mom and dad were just there because I was there. They don't go there with him. They went there often enough near the beginning that they became familiar with some of the figures around there. The courthouse is generally it's a small group of people, judges and lawyers, and so Brett knows most everybody there. The only days he really has difficulty is days when they're, like, for instance, doing a jury selection, and 100 people from the community who don't know Brett arrive there, and they don't know things like tell them what you're buying and some other things that the people who are his regular customers do real well. The support that he gets is not from his mom and dad; it's from the employment assistance person who comes from, they call it CLASS. That's in Texas. That's the name of one of our Medicaid waiver programs, and so that's just one of his services for his community, in his community home and community service program that's funded by a Medicaid waiver. And so we saw her, that woman that we saw helping him do inventory is the one who comes and assists him on a regular basis. I don't remember what I missed there out of those questions.
This is Marilyn. No, you're good. The other one was just regards to training, as far as his training, and you mentioned about the job coach, but if there was anything else you can add, would be great.
VR trained him at the beginning, and that was really successful. He heard about the job outside of his VR counselor, but he contacted his counselor, and they helped not only with doing training initially, but also they did some modifications to the counter space, et cetera, which really helped him out. It was interesting that it's the courthouse is designated as a historic place, and so modifying his counter and stuff, they had to go through all kinds of hoops and bureaucracy to do it, to modify a historic structure, but they got it done, and it made it work much better for him. And so VR was instrumental, I think, in helping him get settled in there.
And David, that's all you got in there right now, so you're good to go.
Okay, good. Because I'm almost out of time, now I'm going to really kind of try to fly through some of this stuff. I want to show you somebody else who is self-employed. This is a guy I met when I was on vacation in Vermont. A guy named Patrick, who had a business that he runs out of a country in there that his parents own, but it's an online enterprise called Purely Patrick. Let me just quickly show you a little bit what he's got going here. What he does is he creates. He's an e-commerce guy. He also sells his products at farmers markets and local, craft fairs and stuff like that, and he sells them online. So he sells dry ingredients for cooking projects, and he sells them in jars, live and in person, and in plastic bottles online. I'll show you a little bit about his products. There you can see the plastic bottles he sells them in, and the mason jars he sells them in also. He's got all sorts of baking projects, and there's also some things like soups, and there's bird seed mixes and all kinds of stuff he sells in there. It's a regular online e-commerce thing where you've got your cart, and you can pay with your credit card, and then also, as I said, it really this is set up at a crafts fair. It really works there too, where you can get a connection to the public. I don't have time to show a video. There's a nice video on purelypatrick.com of a news report on it that I think does well. What I'll do instead, because it's quicker, is show you some pictures that he's got on here, and so you can see he lives at a ski resort. But show you some pictures that the kinds of things that opportunities he has when he's working. He makes regular trips to the post office because he constantly has orders he's having to send off. He also makes regular trips to the market to get the ingredients that he needs. Whoops, I missed some of those pictures. I'm getting all his recreational ones. Where do we have? Oh, here we go. So yeah, he's very familiar with the people at the post office. He makes regular things there. This is where he's showing up at a festival, although it's in front of a construction site, but how he sells in booths, how he does his work with a button to pour, and so that works out real well with him. He's a really good guy, and I urge you to go to purelypatrick.com and watch his news report, but also to give him a little business. We order his products periodically, and it's a good deal. So that's a real good example of self-employment. Here's another one. This is Sky. She has a business making scarves. How she does it is she has a device, a knitting machine that puts out a knitted tube. And Sky, in addition to being deafblind, has a lot of motoric problems, but she can do this with assistance of an attendant that works with her from Medicaid waiver. And just really quick video.
This is Sky knitting away, listening to her music. She has her shades on today. She's a happy girl, and Keegan keeps getting into the yarn below. But this is the scarf that she's knitting right now. And she is knitting away. Say hi, Sky. Hi. There you go. She's trying to feel what she's making. Bye-bye.
Now, Sky liked that because she was interested in things that vibrate. And the fact that she holds that machine where she can feel it, both with her hands and with her body, and that it clicks along as it goes, and she can touch that and enjoy it while also being assisted to turn the crank. She also has music playing. That's another thing that she enjoys and that she has control over. It also gets her out of the house in that she does go and buy the yarn, and she does make the selections on what the yarn that she uses, which she picks based primarily on texture, and picks ones that she likes. But here's some of her products, and you can see that she does go out and sell them at events and things, and so most of her selling brings her in contact with her customers, so that she has an opportunity to know what happens to the things that she does and get the sense of appreciation that her customers have from her, even though she's not really a language user or a formal language user. There's the sign that she has on her products that explains something about herself, and she gets correspondence from people who buy our products who say, "Oh, look, I was in the newspaper. I was wearing the scarf that you knitted," and etc. So it really brings her into connection with other people. I'm just going to fly through a couple more of these, and then maybe have a time for some quick questions at the end. This is a guy named Trey who what we see. Can't really see from that picture. I'm not going to play the video, but he did a recycling routine at school where he pushed a cart and collected materials. And in asking this question of how can it be a job, how could it be a business, how could it be a community service, he enjoyed the act of pushing the cart. He enjoyed throwing the recycling materials into receptacles, and so thought, well, how can he continue that on? And in the town where he lives, it's a small town. They have a recycling center outside of town that people have to drive to and distribute their recycled materials, and they don't have a convenient place that's in the center of the town to do that. So Trey started a convenient collection stations at 2 locations that he knows and he likes, which is his church and his barbershop. And so he put signs up, and people from the community come and bring their recyclables there, and he collects them and sorts them and takes them down to the recycling center as a public service. And so here he is. You can see that he's happy and he's satisfied getting these materials. He likes the sorting, he likes the collecting, he likes the pushing, he likes to just throw things in. He enjoys physical activity, and so he does this. There's a few materials that he can get some money for, but mostly it's as a community service. That's another example of someone making an innovative solution to take something and do it in a productive fashion as a community service. I'm out of time here, so I'll see if there's any time for any last questions before I have to turn this back over to Marilyn.
David, you have really, really brought some great highlights here, and we truly appreciate your time right before the holidays. You have hit some important key points out there. Everyone can have a job. Anyone can do it with just the right support, the right tools, and you really, these videos were extremely impactful. So we thank you so much for your time and your energy for being here. And everybody who attended, thank you so much for being here. We know you could have picked any other webinar, but you selected the Southeast Deafblind webinars. So thanks so much right before the holidays here. Of course, we have everybody from the Deafblind Projects here. We have, of course, Marcy saying, David, thank you. I am always inspired by your innovative ideas for jobs for our students. It is 4:02, everyone. enjoy your holiday shopping. And hey, look at some great ideas. And you're right, who mentioned due to COVID right now, we're all doing everything online. So go ahead and go to purelypatrick.com, order your items, and see what we can do to add to our community out there. And just remember, contact us anytime. The Deafline Projects, and I am the Southeast Helen Keller Regional Rep, and all of our contact information is in those emails as well as on our websites. Happy holidays, everybody. Take care. Thank you, interpreters, for your time. Bye.